So, we've hit the last of the normal style games for now, as the next one is a rhythm game. This was actually the first Kingdom Hearts game I beat and platinumed, for the express reason of I would lose interest and move to another game before beating any of the other KH games. And I highly regret that now that I've beaten almost all of them. This has been a fun ride, playing through all the games and making videos on them. And although this isn't the last KH video until 4 and the new mobile game come out, I still feel sad and quite anxious as I move on to Final Fantasy. If you guys want to, I would love if you guys could give me suggestions in the comments, and even if I don't do them immediately, I'll still get around to them, depending on if they're YouTube friendly. Without any further yammering on, let's go. So this game plays more like Kingdom Hearts 2, but adds a ton of new features, including the ability to move while casting, much like KH2. You know, without having to be in a drive form. Once you do enough actions, whether that be regular hits with the Keyblade or magic hits, you charge up this action bar above your command list, which is represented with arrows. Once it fills, you can activate your Keyblade forms, which are a fun new addition that gives you the equivalent of KH2 limits, but quite a bit more of them, as each Keyblade has their own unique one. And if you did enough of a specific magic, you can get higher versions of the spell to cast here. There are also pieces of gear that will give you ZA versions of spells, such as Arosa. Sora can basically fly as long as he's locked onto an enemy, as he just goes straight towards them no matter what. As one of my friends said while I was working through the game,
how floaty you are in this game. It's so stupid.
You also have attractions that you can use in battle by hitting an enemy with this green circle, and all the attractions are different, but very useful. You have Pirate Ship, Carousel, Blaster Blaze, Mad Teacups, and Mountain Coaster. I love this combat system, but I still have a hard time differentiating whether I like 2 or 3 system better. Olympus this time around is not just the arena. In fact, it never even makes an appearance. So we finally get to go to other places! The city of Thebes is pretty big, with all sorts of destruction on your first run through. Hades has brought in the Titans to destroy Olympus this time, instead of just having them compete in the Colosseum. The Olympus world is mainly just here to teach you all the new mechanics, so there's a lot of wall running and other various movement tutorial stuff. Don't get me wrong though, I enjoy this world quite a lot, but I feel like they could have done more now that I have experience. But when I first played this, it was amazing. Going from KH1 to KH3 made it feel so much better than it really was. You get the Keyblade, Hero's Origin, from this world, which is pretty good design-wise, and with its form changes it gets even more interesting, considering it turns into a chariot. I'm not going to be explaining all of the form changes, because some are better to play than to explain. Twilight Town finally fixed that hole in the wall for the low price of over half the town's explorable areas. The only areas we get to play with here are the main square, the sewers, the forest to the manor, and outside of the manor. That's it. However small this world may be, it's a familiar one, so it couldn't possibly be the worst. You get the Keyblade Shooting Star from here, which has the ability to split into twin guns and even a rocket launcher with its form changes. This is the Kingdom of Corona, and I promise that Rapunzel didn't spread it. This world really tries to get you to stop and look at the graphics, and I did on my first run through, doing all the things that Rapunzel wanted to do, but now it's just a tedious but skippable part of the story. The enemies here aren't anything to be worried about, unless you count these Reaper nobodies, which gave me quite a bit of trouble in my critical run, as they constantly go invulnerable to anything but magic, and do major damage whilst doing so. The final boss here is Mother Gothel as a Heartless, which was the only enemy in the game to make me realize that there was a pollen debuff that made you sneeze after getting covered in the stuff. The Keyblade here looks like Rapunzel's tower, which in itself isn't too great, but the magic buff this thing has makes it a worthwhile equip. It's time to relive those childhood memories of going to Toys R Us and... Wait, what do you mean I never went to Toys R Us? Well, I guess we'll just have to play through the Toy Story world, where we help Woody and Buzz find out what happened to everyone, and get a trailer for a game that looks really fun, but we'll never get it. This world also gives us one of the game's only nods to Final Fantasy in the base game, in the form of a giant cactuar statue that you build. You can pilot a mech here, which is rather fun, with the different colors having different special attacks. But overall, the only thing this world really gives us is this line by Woody.
My guess is no one's ever loved you before.
The Keyblade you get here is one of the most inventive ones yet, mixing the cowboy and space ranger themes to make one cohesive weapon. Oh, I found the spot.
Joseph! I'm watching!
Here we have this game's version of DMCA Strike the World, as it pretty much opens with Let It Go. I probably wouldn't hate this world so much if I wasn't forced by my little brothers to watch the movie over 1,000 times. Or maybe if most of this world didn't happen in snowstorms or an ice maze. I seriously hate this world. Its pacing seems all wrong and nothing here makes it feel any better. Especially when you either can't see or in the blandest area they could possibly make. Even the Keyblade from this world looks horrible, with it just being a key made of ice with no personality given to it. If you've watched the entire series of reviews I have for the KH series, then you know I'm a sucker for costume changes based on the world. And Monsters Inc. delivers, making all of your party monsters. I really like this world, even though a lot of it boils down to hallways and rail sections, which you might think I'd be upset about after the Frozen world. But at least the areas here have some sort of life to them. There are a lot of hard-hitting enemies that jump at you here, which also made Critical Mode a nightmare, but once you get past them, it's all fine. This world gives us the absolute best scene from the game.
Iconic.
Now, this is the cutscene we lovingly refer to as Yeetus Vanitas.
This is why we refer to it as Yeetus Vanitas.
Now, that's not enough. Yeet!
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 Is this really necessary? Isn't turning the first door off enough?
And then just shredding the door. Also, the Keyblade here is interesting as it looks like the things that take the doors away with a helmet on it. But where it really shines is in its form change, with it becoming a pair of claws that do tons of damage quickly, and the final form of it which makes it into a yo-yo for closing gaps and dealing even more damage, while eating the enemy to finish it off. I absolutely love this world. My only real gripe about it is that the boat is too responsive. They bring back underwater combat, but this time around it actually works. You have combos, and by this time in the game you have plenty of magic, unlike KH1 throwing you in with hardly any MP. The ship combat feels amazing, and was still a challenge in critical mode, having to hit specific parts of the ship to try and destroy it faster. I have to say though that my favorite part of the ship combat is the move where you rocket the boat into the air and slam it down to make a giant wave. I also love that you can go to pretty much all of the islands on the map, with there being quite a few in this large area. The Keyblade from this world is basically just a mast with some rigging, but that's fine in my opinion. San Francisco is another huge area, but I'm realizing that most worlds are actually really big. But the reason that San Francisco felt so much bigger to me is there are no loading areas. There are only 2 spaces to load between here, Hero's Garage and the city, with there being so much in the city. You can climb skyscrapers, climb on balloons, and even ride the train rails. Near the end, you get to fight on Baymax, which is a weird experience as you can only use Baymax's moves. But luckily, being a healthcare robot, he does have a healing ability. The Keyblade you get here is made out of microbots with a bit of the armor plating from Baymax, making this the most technologically advanced thing that Sora knows how to use. The Keyblade graveyard in this game was turned into a maze with arenas so you could fight the organization members at their advantage. But of course, being Keyblade wielders, you don't care about the type advantage, and just keep hitting them until they die. Until you get to the point where Roxas enters the fight, and just watch as he fights by himself. Don't worry, he doesn't need you. You need him. I would go into the story of what happens here, but I tried to explain it to my roommate a few weeks ago, and ended up screaming for 45 minutes straight and losing my voice. The cooking is comprised of 4 minigames, and if you do excellent on them, you get the plus version of the food you're making, which gives some more stats. The minigames are as follows: cracking an egg, burning the alcohol off some wine, chopping vegetables, and finally adding pepper to a dish. You get ingredients all throughout the game, and your party members will not let you forget. So, Remind has you go through a post-game mission set, where you find the pieces of Kairi's heart, and then use the connections within Sora's heart to find her after being put back together. First, Sora connects with Riku and the others who are fighting the armored Xehanorts we find within the city in the sky. Once the encounter is over, we play as Mickey, who is struggling to stay standing, but with Sora's help, he makes it through. Then Sora shoots a bunch of keyholes to connect them, and he's able to bring Kairi back, at the cost of losing himself, with Kairi making it her goal to bring Sora back like he did for her. The other things brought about by Remind are pretty much just super bosses of all the Organization 13 members from this game, and a fight with Yozora, the main character from that game and Toy Story we wish was real. I guess there is one more thing, even though it doesn't have any gameplay, you can organize characters in different worlds to make pictures. Though this was the first Kingdom Hearts game I actually gave the time to finish, I have to say the nostalgia isn't blinding, though that may be because I played through this game again in Critical to get the footage. I have to say I still love playing this game, but I realize now after playing through all of the KH games that this game really tries to shoehorn the story in, despite only doing so in the last couple of hours of gameplay. I'd still give the game a 7 out of 10 though, because it's enjoyable enough to make me replay it, but not enough for me to do it in quick succession.